Um, I think three stories come to mind as the most memorable for me and impactful. The first is a story about widows, some women whose husbands were killed in this a military plane crash. I was supposed to cover the memorial, and I missed the actual ceremony. So when I got there, I saw the widows. There were so some of them by the graveside and family members, and I started interviewing them, and the kind of emotion that I could elicit from the questions, because of the way I asked the questions, really overwhelmed me. And I was really proud of the ability to be able to tell the stories of those widows, what they were going through about missing their spouse, their dead spouses, and how they're trying to get the Nigerian government to pay them the benefits that were due to them. The second story I would remember was when Umaru Musa Yar'Adua was president of Nigeria, and at some point nobody knew where he was. So the editorial team, then I was Africa Independent Television, they called me because I cover information and communication for the station to go interview the Minister of Information, Professor Dora Akoyili. I remember when I got there, she was very hesitant, in granting this interview. But at the end of the day, we were able to convince her that this is not about politics, this is not about your personal prejudices or personal preservation, but about the country and about Nigerians. And she agreed to the interview. That's when she said, oh, there were this cabal, they were shielding the president. And that interview, I remember that day I was there, it was only Channels and AIT that had that interview, and that was because I called the Channels reporter to come with me. And that interview triggered a lot of things that made it possible for President Goodluck Jonathan, who was then acting president, to become the substantive president of Nigeria. I was really, really very proud of that interview. The third one really is this interview I did in 2002 with Lagbaja. Lagbaja was a big deal then, and I was just a 21-year-old reporter who was really into the depth of his music, the lyrics and the substance they bring. And I just wanted to tell his story. And it was over an hour. And it was such a great interview that even Lagbaja himself was like, wow, that he's not had an interview in a long time, that the questions were very deep, because I really dug deep into his music to come up with my questions. And watching at it right now, looking at myself, 20 years ago, it gives me so much pride that at that young age, I could talk to somebody that big at the time, and ask him questions that really mattered.
It's really very nice. And I have to ask you, you have several of them. I'm sure some of them are more beautiful than this. And the most popular one, I think, is that black and white. Do you remember it?
Yeah, that's because he was used for a project then,
He was quite an enigma at the time, and I'm proud of this interview.
These are not everyday designs that people wear exclusive to Lagbaja. Who designs them?
I designed some of them myself. Right now, I'm looking out for new designers because
it's such a joyful thing to look at, your past work, and because sometimes we're so caught up in what we want to achieve that we forget to celebrate the things that we have done before, especially when they don't come with awards and shining things that put you on a pedestal, so to speak, I'm really very grateful.